So the freelancer works all night on this logo for this client, and they finally get it to a place where they're happy with it. They're super proud of it, and they send it off in an email attachment to the client. And the client opens the email attachment and sees this. And he turns to his colleague and says, "We're paying $15,000 for an incomplete triangle and an arrow." This is my title slide. It says, "Show the thought behind it." And my advice this week, my little tip, my little insight, is for the scenario where a creative is looking for sign off, looking for approval of someone else. Whilst autonomy is great when you can publish your own work, there's often times where you might be making a piece at the request of someone else. Someone else has to approve it. Someone else is paying for it. Someone else is buying this work, right? And so, right, that to the untrained eye, to the uninitiated, it might look as simple as a hand-drawn triangle and an arrow, right? But to use, put a lot of effort in it, you might see all the thought that you put into it, all the little nuances that you added, right? And so you've got to sell your piece and do it justice by explaining the thought that went into it to the client, to the uninitiated, right? So, for example, if I were advising that freelancer, if I were to play the role of that freelancer, I would say something like, "Okay, it's in red because that represents, your presence in China. It's incomplete because it's a sign of that you're always striving to do better. The arrow going into the middle represents that you are imperfect, that you've had you've taken setbacks in the past, but you're still progressing. This little end of the arrow, the kind of two on top and one on the bottom, is a nod to your American partnership, right? And so why creatives do this, or why agencies will probably present the new logo, is that they can talk about the new logo, right? Rather than just sending it in an email attachment and letting the client, come to their own conclusions in their own time, or thinking it's crap. They usually present it and show all the thought around it, because the client has to sell it to his or her boss, or has to sell it to the customers, or has to sell it to someone else. So if you can equip the client with this, this lovely moment where the client can point out all the clever bits, all the clever little nuances in a logo, that they gain from it too, right? And that they're probably more likely to see what you see in the logo and not see just a hand-drawn, incomplete triangle and an arrow, that they'll actually see very clever, lots of thought put into the piece. That's my little tip for this week. Hope that helps. I'm Thomas.